Welcome to Module 2, where we will discuss what a healthy cat and human bond looks like. As usual, we'll start with the agenda. The introduction to this module is what is a healthy cat and human bond? You will learn new tools and ways of thinking about cats that perhaps you haven't learned before, and that will happen towards the beginning and middle of this lesson. At the beginning, we're going to start to think beyond just the individual framework of you and your cat. Towards the middle, we're going to think even more broadly about a healthier planet and why that matters. And at the end, of course, you'll have a quiz, which you'll be required to take in order to move on to the next section. So, in order for us to understand the cat-human bond, I believe we have to take a broader look at the way that humans and cats coexist in our world today. Just as we started with how cats were domesticated, where are we now in this relationship with cats? It's important to consider the overall wellness of domesticated animals in general, our role as humans on this planet and how we care for our domesticated animals, and then also what are our beliefs about animals, the planet, etc., because we're facing a big crisis for our planet if we do not think beyond our individual needs. So, some brief comments on domestication. Cats depend on us. So, by definition, once cats became domesticated, they lost pretty much any control over their lives that they may have had. They're fed a certain time of day. They don't get to choose what kind of food they eat. They go to the vet. They don't really get to choose whether they want to go or not. Depending on their life, they may not have another cat in the household and they may really benefit from another cat, but maybe that's not something you can do. So we have to think about how much do we control our cats' lives, and the answer is pretty much all of it. Cats are considered property under the law, but there are some caveats as people start to consider how animals are actually living beings and may have certain inalienable rights like we do. However, it's a murky area with domesticated animals, and cats are not seen as free beings under the law. When we think about freedom and law, we think about autonomy, right? So in reality, all animals, all beings, especially social animals like cats, have the need to have choice and freedom in their life to really flourish. Since the cats were domesticated, they became dependent on us. So what are some of the ways that we could give them greater choice? Could we give them more choice in how they engage in enrichment or play? Could they have more perches, scratching posts? It sounds silly, but these little tiny things make a huge difference in their life. And at the end of the day, it's really important that we rethink our role as human beings on this planet, especially given the urgent need to act on climate change. There are so many animals that are up for extinction or are severely endangered, many of which are our cats' cousins. And the welfare of humans and animals more broadly is in deep trouble if we don't start thinking about our role as humans a little bit differently. So, back to our little dependents. Cats are very different now from when they were when we first domesticated them. They are much more like our children these days, and many of us call our cats our fur babies. And I know that can be cringy for some, but I really do think that's an appropriate kind of way of looking at it because they really are like our children. They go to the doctor, the kitty doctor. We pick out their food and we make them eat their food. And they get a lot of their other needs met a lot like children do, right? Only thing is that our children eventually grow up, but our cats are dependent on us their entire lives. So imagine you were dependent on a giant being for your own needs. What sort of trust or relationship would you need to have with that giant to feel like you could really trust them, that they'd come through for you, that they'd have your back? How would you know that the giant is going to make sure that you eat today and that you are loved? I mean, cats do need to feel loved. And when we think about cats more broadly, many of their cousins are endangered because of our actions. For example, tigers, leopards, cheetahs, and lions are all endangered. If you want to learn more about endangered species, you can take a quick look at awionline.org. And that's the slide here, the Animal Welfare Institute. All it took for me was one search. I just typed tiger, cheetah, lion, and every single one of them endangered. It's really critical that we know this and we don't look away from this, because our little cats in our household came to us from the wild. We were once more wild, right? And so we need to think about, what is our future going to look like with these animals in our homes, and how do we make the world better so we aren't facing a climate crisis? Moving on to the idea of autonomy. A little bit goes a long way. So if we stop to think about our choices that our cats get from everyday life, do they choose the food that they eat? No, right? Do they choose the area that they inhabit? Maybe a little bit. Like, my cat gets to come in and lay in my bed when I'm not here, or he'll definitely show me where he wants to be, and I'll try to let him be in that area. I've also built him some more spaces so he can be higher up, because that's a need that cats have, and he seems happier. So a little bit goes a long way. Building a little space for our cats to perch on is a need for them, and it feels good to have that. So why not? Choice is respect. So cats benefit from greater access to choice because they are social mammals, and choice is a need. So things like more perches, scratching areas, opportunities to socialize, maybe getting another cat if we have one cat and they're lonely. Of course, we want to do that in a way that's thought out and not just on a whim, but maybe really think, maybe my cat needs a friend, another feline friend. What about enrichment and play and interactions with our cats? How do we learn cats' social behaviors and understand their psychology and respond to their boundaries? That's a big one, because choice is about boundaries. So if we're not respecting their boundaries in some way, they're gonna not like us so much. Thinking back to the giant, if we were cats and we lived in these little places and giants owned us, what would we need from the giant to know that we were safe? I mean, I would want to know that I could have some choice in the matter. I would want to know that I could say, no, giant, I don't want to play with you right now, and I wouldn't get hurt, right? So those are just some of the things that we think about when we think like cats. So how do we view who gets choice? Choice and freedom are designated as human-only needs, but in reality, all beings benefit from choice. And that requires us to rethink our humanity then, right? Because if all beings benefit from choice, then why are we claiming that as a human-only thing? Well, that has to do with anthropomorphism. Anthropomorphism is defined as humans putting characteristics that are more human than they really should be onto other things. For example, my cat is aloof. He just doesn't care about me, right? I'm going to go into why the aloof cat is a myth in some other modules, but that's a projection based off of how we relate to other human beings. Maybe we've had relationships in the past where we've had aloof partners or parents. So we're sensitive when our cat's acting a little aloof towards us, acting like they don't care. But really, cats do appear aloof, but they have so many social needs that if we tuned into them, we'd realize that they really have a lot that they want from us. They just don't know how to ask. So when we project onto animals or onto the land or onto other beings, including people, we got to check ourselves. We got to ask, am I thinking the way of an actual cat right now, or am I thinking like a human? The indigenous peoples of North America in particular have long called for something called mutual wellness. In South America as well, there are incredible indigenous communities protecting the Amazon rainforest and actually doing amazing work legally getting protections for the Amazon, which, if you didn't know, they have a very special reverence for the jaguar. And they believe that the jaguar is kind of a spirit that guides them in their ability to protect the land and is much like a spirit animal and a spirit guide to them. And the jaguar also does live in the rainforest. So the indigenous folks have this term reciprocity, which is far more than just having, a balanced carbon footprint. It's about protecting land. It's about making sure that endangered species are not endangered. It's about protecting wildlife and changing the way we engage with the world so we're not harming our planet anymore. And instead, we're mutually benefiting. And that happens in the human and cat bond too. When we stop thinking about the cat as our subservient or our child or our animal, our pet, and start thinking of them as our friend, as our companion, things start to really change in that relationship. And that's where I think mutual flourishing comes from. And that's why we have to consider the bigger picture, right? So we have to find new ways to think of our companion animals, our communities, our societies, and our ecosystems to address the modern issues our planet faces due to our behaviors. And I think we can do it. I'm an optimist. So right here, I have a little kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but it's different. So you'll see kind of the basic needs are still physical: food, shelter, water, air, excretion, like waste, right? And as we're going up, there's security, like bonds, housing, health, resources, play, predictability. Then there's more towards the psychological: esteem, respect, joy, belonging, choice. Choice is very important. And at the very tippity top, there's liberation. So, what is liberation? That's when all of those things are in mutual benefit and reciprocity. So, when we are respecting fungi, mushrooms, esteem, and housing, and choice, and ability to excrete, and all of those things, once we are actually on that level of treating fungi that way or treating plants that way, that's when we're getting towards liberation. We have to think about animals in our pursuit of justice and liberation. So, what is a healthy bond with our cat? From my perspective, and this is a very unique perspective through Companion Animal Collective, I believe a healthy bond with our cat has the following ingredients: understanding that our cat is a being, and much of what we think about them is likely wrong; recognizing our anthropomorphism and correcting it with scientifically valid information about cat psychology and their welfare; building enrichment, choice, and care for our cats far beyond our homes, meaning we're getting involved in making sure our lions aren't going extinct. We're trying to learn more about indigenous perspectives on the jaguar and how that helps them fight for the Amazon. So it's really thinking beyond our own homes and towards all of humanity and towards all of creation, all of being, and understanding the need to change ourselves and our roles in this world towards mutual wellness and liberation. So without that, can we have a healthy bond? I guess. But is it maximized? Are we living to the fullest that we could? I don't think so. So let's look at a reciprocal bond with a cat. And if you want to learn more about reciprocity, I don't want to speak for Indigenous people, but I certainly want to uplift their voices and what they've been working on. So I encourage you to learn more about Indigenous teachers, scholars, and activists, and I will try my best to speak on what I know about what Indigenous folks and communities are doing to protect animals and nature in general, and themselves and humanity. But a reciprocal bond, let's think about maybe What is the proper nutrition that our cat should have? It goes beyond just kind of buying a bag at a store, and we're really doing some research now. We're becoming more scientific and curious about exactly what should our cat be eating now and why. Um, AFCO is a great organization for learning about our cats' needs and their nutritional, through their life, right? So from kittenhood to like old age, AFCO is a great place to look for, what should my cat be eating and what are some good brands for that. Cats really do need to eat branded food. It's not ideal to give them meat off the table because they have specific minerals and vitamins that they need, essential amino acids and things that just are in their food that we don't naturally have in our homes to give them. So I do recommend you actually do get cat food from a store, but just kind of be more mindful in your consuming of that. Cats have a unique psychology that requires us to understand their species and their needs from their perspective. Enrichment and choice are vital for them, for their happiness, for their longevity, and for our own feelings of wellness, right? Like, as I said, yeah, we could have a healthy bond with our cats without thinking about others, but I think it's healthier and more enriching to think about our society, our more general population of people, of animals, of all of nature. I think that gives us a greater sense of purpose in life. And I think that's maybe a better route to take if we feel we can take that. Um, we want to learn how cats perceive the world, and that helps us think more like them instead of us. When we anthropomorphize our cats, we're not doing them any good, and we're not doing ourselves any good either. It's like we're looking through the wrong lens at something, and we're just totally misjudging things. And how can we fix a problem if we're looking at things the wrong way, right? Start reframing things. Recognizing that cats are dependent on us. And what does that mean? What does that say about us? Are we responsible for their future? Absolutely. Do we have to figure out ways to make it better for them? Yeah. Are we responsible for their cousins? I believe so, especially since it's us causing the damage to their cousins, right? Thus, rethinking the more individualistic perspectives we have in society and taking a more collective vision, like that Maslow's reimagined hierarchy of needs. At the tippy top is liberation when we are respecting the mutual welfare of all living beings. In conclusion, cats depend on us quite literally. Rethinking the way that we live with them, interact with them, and see our cats. Reframing how we see them is vital for them and us, and leads to the healthiest bond possible, full of choice, agency, and respect.